This talk for me is from the perspective of a consultant who's been in the value stream space from the individual practitioner level through technical leadership at a startup, through enterprise implementations, bubblegum and paperclip implementations of value stream management, and involved with clients of all sizes, all industries, and with vendors, as well as through the VSMC and a lot of research. So, and analyst conversations. So I've seen a lot of the same patterns come up, a lot of the same challenges, goals, and through our work at the VSMC, we've put together a framework that really helps kind of put the challenges that we see in the market into context. And so hopefully this is helpful to structure conversation about how we can all move this forward and get better outcomes with what we know is going to make a major difference in software delivery, operations, scaling, agility, product management, and everything that value stream management touches. So I'm going to talk about current state of value stream management and common barriers that we see. I'm going to talk about how we go from there to flow, more productive and higher performance operations inside of what we see as product development and delivery organizations. Talk about interoperability and assessment as major pieces of that puzzle, and then what's coming next. And part of that is what the VSMC is bringing to the industry as we're working on ways of making this better. So this is, how many folks recognize this thing? Okay, great. This is the value stream management implementation roadmap, and this has changed over the past year. You'll notice, if you've ever seen this year one, vision was the ultimate destination. But we've moved it up, right, to speak to the fact that beginning with the end in mind is very powerful. And often it's the thing that people can rally around and get excited about. And what happens is you move through this journey along the implementation roadmap, and most people really struggle when they get to these later stages. They bump into the reality of what do you do when you've mapped, or how do you know that you've mapped something effectively? How do you take that to action? How do you scale it? How do you operationalize it? How do you get to that point where we know the most value is, which is continuous adaptation, right? Getting to better continuous improvement, but also moving in new directions, leveraging the agility that you can get from the insights that something like VSM brings you. So I'm going to go through each of these stages that I think people really struggle with in detail, and then we'll talk about what I think we can do about that. So a lot of what I hear, so I come from the mapping space, I come from value stream mapping. I kind of stumbled into this world of value stream management via mapping because I think it's incredibly powerful. But what I hear a lot from folks who struggle is that it's difficult to take the time, even though we know what happens when you do take the time and how much you save by taking the time. It's like any investment, right? The upfront cost is hard to swallow sometimes, especially when you don't know what you're getting into. And that speaks to the second point about knowing how to do this productively, right? There's a lot of folks who they look at the resources available online, they look at the history of value stream management in manufacturing, and they really struggle to apply the principles and practices to software and digital contexts. And that's been happening for 100 years. So there's a lot more of that material than there is of material in the digital context, and how you actually can leverage this in an agile team or product development team. It's something where if you're struggling and you don't really know what you're doing, odds are you're not going to be particularly happy with the map that you create, and you're not necessarily going to want to go back to it and repeat that experience over and over again, which is where you get a lot of the continuous adaptation benefits from value stream mapping. Coming back to the map, either throwing it away and recreating it from scratch based on your current state, or updating it with current data or more accurate representations of what's actually happening in the value stream. So we have folks who, they try mapping as a pilot. Maybe most of the team is kind of partially bought in. They don't really know what they're getting. And in a lot of these places where they have the most to gain, they have the least psychological safety, they have a lot of the biggest challenges that hold you back from being productive in the context of mapping. And then again, how do you connect that to the broader organization, right? A lot of folks struggle to place even a single value stream in the context of their organization, but how do you start to build that network that allows you to understand the organizational flow, how one stream affects another and how they're all interdependent. So the next thing that a lot of folks bump into, especially if they skip the mapping step because they love tools and they love just getting to work, is the connection phase. And this is very popular because value stream management is a new shiny toy, and a lot of our vendors do an excellent job selling the benefits and getting customers engaged with trying these tools out, thinking about what's possible when they have everything interconnected and all the data that they're looking for. But it's very difficult to get access to the data that they need, right? Especially in the organizations where it would be most beneficial. They struggle with silos, they struggle with access. It takes a long time. Who's gonna trust that that data is gonna be used in the right way? Another problem is, how is that data not gonna be weaponized against the folks who are providing it, right? In a lot of organizations, if you have a pathological environment, surfacing any data could result in folks focusing on the wrong thing, right? How do you drive more activity? How do you get more hands on keyboards, keep them in the seats longer, get more output from folks? Or, in the worst cases I've seen, how do we cut FTEs, right? How do we trim staff with this? And that's even before you get access to the data. Once you get access to the data, you have the problem of the data is garbage, right? The data, because folks haven't been working in a value stream context, they don't have things like flow distribution accurately tagged in their activity data, right? They don't have things like proper segmentation or the hygiene around when specific activities start and end. So in a value stream context, if something stays open longer than it actually was open, if you're not closing your tickets, all your data gets skewed. It's very difficult to attribute what's really happening to the data that's the evidence of what happened. And this, again, is really, everybody has their own integration that's powering these things, right? And a lot of folks, they've tried to solve these problems in many different ways. It's not very comfortable to throw away what you already have, right? If you've got, somebody has Kibana and they have a data warehouse, they might try to throw something together to show DORA metrics or whatever else. Why do we need this value stream management thing? I've got our gum and paperclip solution. And it looks good on my resume, so I'm not gonna get rid of that and adopt your off-the-shelf solution. So we also have trouble with inspection, mostly because we have bad data, and it's very difficult to understand how what is quality data? What are the metrics that folks really need to track? And that makes it very difficult to scale efforts and compare, right? Where in our value stream network is the real constraint? Where could folks need help? And that holds us back from global insights about entire organizations, right? And that can be valuable as vendors to understand how you can be most helpful, but as consultants as well, as organizations themselves, even doing things like assessing what should we do next year? Should we merge divisions? Should we buy this company? All of that could be facilitated by high quality data and value stream management, as long as that data is high quality and folks understand how to leverage it. And all of those aspects of pathological culture or difficult organizational structure make it challenging to share those insights in a way that you know that they're going to be interpreted in a positive context and constructively. And all of these things are holding us back from this adaptation, right? If you don't have good information about where you are and where you're headed and what options are available to you, it's very difficult for you to make decisions about what to do better and how you can navigate going forward. So if we're thinking about adaptation in the context of, you have to know your current state, you have to know where you are, and you have to know what options are available to you. And the measurement that's going to show you positive progress towards your goal, we have to address these prior stages and think about how do we make this easy and highly effective so that folks can focus on that navigation and not about sorting through the mess that value stream management has pulled out of the cupboards, as Marie Kondo and said, go look through all your data and see what sparks joy. So one of the things that we're doing in this direction that we started, did this start earlier in the year? I think it was earlier in the year. So a couple folks in this room and folks in the larger ecosystem have come together to try to make some progress towards interoperability, this idea of how do we make data easy to understand, easy to access, easy to connect to what we know as valuable value stream management insights, the metrics that we know are correlated with positive and negative progress or characteristics of a workflow of value stream. So this right now is a bunch of folks come together on a regular basis to look at a couple of different things. So we've looked at existing work in the ecosystem. There's a lot that's been done in categorizing data, establishing data models. Oh, am I? No problem. Thanks. So we're looking at what's out there in the ecosystem already. There's been a couple of things. There's been a couple of things spun up and torn down in the integration marketplace. Things like Amazon was part of an initiative, Microsoft, Salesforce, they've all been parts of these initiatives to establish unified data models, but for very purpose-built contexts, like CRM, nothing around value streams. And what we really want to do is make it easy for folks to plug in their data and see insights so that they can get to those later stages of the implementation roadmap. So this could look like a data model. It could look like clear and easily digestible information about key metrics. And it could be open standards. It could be cooperation among multiple vendors to have a common data model where there's coverage from different aspects of value streams, because this is a lot of territory. So watch this space, because if you're interested in efforts to bring different perspectives and efforts together and not reinvent the wheel every couple of years, we'd love to have you check it out. So the goals of the VSMI are easy access to data, clean data, plug and play, avoiding sunk costs, all those things that we identified as challenges in the Connect space. Another thing that we're looking for is easy ways of understanding where folks are, right? In this implementation journey, how do you get through the stages that these folks are struggling with in terms of measuring and understanding their path forward? So we are starting to work on an assessment that's going to be available to the public, but also available for private consulting engagements for in-depth assessment of organizations. And we want to make sure that this is connected to the implementation roadmap so that there's clear education and resources available to folks who are either taking the assessment or have taken the assessment and want to know what to do with that. And we've spun up a a proof of concept on a platform called Comparative Agility, which is part of a marketplace of public assessments. They're free to take for individuals. So we want to make that available so that it hits a broad audience of folks who are not in this room, not in this space, but may be curious and may want to take those first steps into the ecosystem. And all of that we're working on to generate fast feedback, right? An assessment's very quick to understand key concepts, to kind of place yourself in the space and understand, where am I compared to this thing, right? What is this thing relative to my context? It can be taken over and over again and show progress over time. So that helps us get to adaptation to a degree. It scales because you can take it as an individual, but your entire team, your entire company. And we're able to go not only broad, but super deep with it. So you could be looking at an entire organization in detail with a facilitator who can sort of guide the assessment process and then what to do with that assessment to get to that adaptation. And, oh, now I'm to what? This way. I was misreading. Okay. So the way that we see this is we're going to have a public and basic representation of an assessment and then a private and advanced version of an assessment so that we kind of hit both opportunities. And that can be taken as an individual for the public and basic, but both can be taken as a team. And then if you're taking a private or advanced assessment, that can be facilitated by someone who can shepherd you through this process and get you to that adaptation step faster than if you were navigating this on your own. And all of those insights, they'll be aggregated to a degree so that the VSMC can report back to the community about what we're seeing across all these assessments. And hopefully we get a lot of assessments done by folks who are outside of this community, because one of the challenges with surveying the state of value stream management is we're largely speaking to our people, the folks who already know a lot about this. And this is a way for us to sort of broaden our access to insights from outside the broader, in the broader ecosystem. So the last thing that I'll talk about is something that I think hits all of the aspects of the implementation roadmap, which is a marketplace. So a marketplace of professionals, vendors, consultants, communities, tools, open source, that is all collected in a place where if you are coming in looking for something specific, you can find it. But if you're coming in out of curiosity, you're able to start from go and have help through all the pieces, all the steps of the implementation roadmap with a professional, with someone who can help you out and help you navigate that space. So that's also currently proof of concept that we'll be testing out over the next couple weeks to see how we can plug that in and give everybody a chance to get on there, get into it, and get using it to fill all the gaps that, if you're not going start to finish with a single vendor from day one, you can sort of chart your own path more effectively. And that's it. So I have an ask for everybody here. I would love to know what's holding you back specifically. What did I miss? What are the things that you're hearing from teams, colleagues, other vendors, other folks, analysts, whatever it is? So I'd love to get your feedback on the session and hear about things that we can do to help with that implementation roadmap, make that as smooth as possible, and really help get more people to that continuous adaptation. Thanks very much. Oh, I would love to take Q&A if we have time. Anybody have any questions, comments? Yes.
Comment is you asked what's holding back. The term value stream, automatically everybody goes to, oh my gosh, not Lean Six Sigma, not 6 months, not 8 months, please don't take me down that rat hole. And so I find that every time I talk about value streaming, I have to preface it by saying rapid value streaming, a leaner version of it, a minified version of it, and explain
That's a great point. That's something that came up yesterday night at dinner. We've been talking about it all day yesterday as well. That the term value stream speaks to, in some cases it sets off alarm bells. In some cases it draws blank stares. And we potentially benefit from talking about what it does more than what it is. And so we're investigating different ideas. And if you have ideas about what we should call this thing, if we're talking to someone who we don't know speaks the language, that would be excellent. We talked yesterday about something like delivery performance. And delivery performance is somewhat self-explanatory, right? You might move in a direction where it's more universal. But, I was talking to Anand from ServiceNow, and he pointed out that delivery is engineering focused to a large degree, right? There's a lot of product folks who think about delivery as the last mile, the last thing that happens in the value stream. And so that's another space that I think we could use a lot of help defining. And we'd love your input on, what is the language that works in the conversations that you're having? Anybody else? Yes. So the idea behind it's a good point about maturity. We're not big fans of maturity, just just because of how sort of arbitrary and prescriptive it can be. But it is about self-awareness, gap awareness. So understanding, based on what we know of the criteria we've seen associated with success, how can you look at the characteristics of your organization and see how they look in that context? Because we know that, comparison is very problematic, and yet everybody wants to do it all the time, right? So we're kind of in this position, if we don't do it, somebody will do it, and it's very valuable for folks to feel like they have a level of confidence in where they are. So, we're treading very carefully in the assessment world, definitely steering away from the framing of maturity, but really looking at how do you know where you are, in a sense that you can see things that you might not have seen yet, and things that we think are very important from having conversations, doing research, collecting all of the insights that we have across the industry. We think we know a lot about the characteristics of highly successful stream-oriented organizations. And so it's sort of like providing that as a way of allowing folks to see where they might want to focus their energy. Yes. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. That's great. So, I think that we have work to do on, speaking to the upstream and the downstream at various scales in a way that we get people nodding their heads. But another thing that we're doing, and the last thing that I'll mention before I give up the mic, is we're really focusing the next year on collecting and telling those stories, because I think that's another piece that I didn't actually include in my presentation, but is very powerful in helping folks navigate that journey and understand the context and see themselves in a success story or see themselves in another organization that's having the similar challenges that they have. So that's another big focus of ours, and hopefully across all those dimensions, we help move things forward. Thank you very much.